Groceries down, energy's down, gasoline. Is now they're buying gasoline now for $1.99.
People like my grandmother who suffer the most when food and rent become unaffordable for normal people.
It's always about the money.
My friends, on a generation of failed leadership, we're going to make America great again, and we
will fight and win our nation's wars and called upon.
That the average first-time homebuyer is now 40 years old. We are looking at costs of electricity. We're looking at the cost of healthcare. We're looking at the cost of groceries. We're looking at the cost of daycare. These are the costs that plague the American people. And Donald Trump is up in some escapade talking now about Venezuela where he doesn't have any idea.
A vote for Trump means your groceries will be cheaper.
Greenland. Let's talk about Venezuela, Russia, Ukraine, and we'll worry about Greenland in about 2 months.
Also bring your grocery bill way down. I have more complaints on grocery. The word grocery, it's sort of simple word, but it sort of means like everything you eat.
Look, if you think what's happening right now around the world is just about war, then quite frankly, you're not paying attention to the things that actually truly matter. Because this isn't about war. It's about prices. And prices decide whether your retirement still works, whether your rent goes up, whether your pension will still pay out as it's promised to, mortgage payments are able to be met and serviced, or if the cost of living crisis persists and works you into the ground. Whether or not your portfolio actually works for you in the future, or whether our purchasing power slowly and quietly evaporates. So, by the end of this video, you'll understand why conflicts overseas are now a direct threat to your future, not just your present. So, here's the mechanism right up front. No fluff, no prevarication. Not missiles, not flags, not speeches. We're talking energy, liquidity, balance sheets, inflation. Modern wars aren't fought just to win territory. They're actually fought to reshape price systems. And price systems decide what your money buys tomorrow, what your pension promises mean today, and more importantly, tomorrow, and whether long-term investing still actually makes sense in this ever-changing, fast-moving market. Because prices destroy retirement silently. They destroy your hopes and your dreams, your ability to go to university, your ability to put down money for a first car or a first house. Most people think retirement dies in crashes. That's wrong. Retirement dies slowly. It dies when inflation runs above wage growth. CPI understates real living costs. Asset prices, when they rise faster than the contributions. And purchasing power leaks away year after year after year. Of course, you don't notice it at first. And then one day, all of a sudden, you realize your money didn't disappear. It just stopped working for you. And that $1 or that £1 or that £1 doesn't buy what it used to be able to buy before. I mean, let's be honest, £1 can't really buy anything, but I digress. So take Venezuela, for example. Officially, it's about politics. Officially, it's about oil. Officially, it's about democracy. Venezuela is about energy being removed from the global system. When energy supply tightens, transport costs rise, food costs rise, manufacturing costs rise. Those costs never stay local. They move into CPI, RPI, inflation expectations, bond yields, factory output. And bond yields are what pensions are built on, mechanically. Sanctions don't just punish countries. They reprice retirement math globally and, more importantly, locally in regards to your own retirement and the viability of your hopes and dreams for yourselves and for your family members as well. So what happens when the liquidity into the system actually disappears? Let's talk Cuba, because Cuba isn't poor because it lacks workers. No, the people are very industrious. It isn't poor because it lacks land. It's got some of the most beautiful land on earth. Think about the United Fruit Company and what they were able to grow there. It isn't poor because it lacks resources. It's poor because it lacks cheap access to money, cheap access to developed capital markets, cheap access to free and cheap liquidity, no access to dollar funding, global credit, balance sheet expansions. So prices rise until the population absorbs the loss. That's what happens when a system can't inflate its way out anymore. And here's the warning, if I'm not being, apocalyptic enough. When pensions can't earn real returns, when bond yields don't beat inflation, when portfolios rely on hope instead of growth, you don't get a collapse. You just get permanent erosion. And in some ways, that's much worse because it's pernicious, it's insidious, it's the silent killer. So what about China? Because China is the long war against purchasing power. Because China doesn't need an open war. China plays time, China plays pricing. China thinks in 100-year cycles, not in the 4 to 5 year election cycle that we have in the West. They do this by controlling manufacturing capacity, their rare earth supply chain leverage. They are experts at it. They've perfected it. They've become incredibly adroit at all of those things that we were once the powerhouses of. Think manufacturing. China beats us there. Robotics. They have the dominant share in the market. China influences global inflation without any headlines. They export deflation because their own economy is in an involution race to the bottom. That's why transitory inflation never left. Consumer sentiment collapsed early. Real wages, even when employment looked strong, kept falling. Your portfolio doesn't fall overnight. It doesn't just collapse one day. It underforms the realpolitik and the reality on the ground. That's how the wealth transfer actually happens. It is surreptitious, it's clandestine, it's quiet, and it happens in a step fashion, not all at once. So what's going on in Greenland? And why is it a game and a story about control, logistics, and prices? Because Greenland isn't about ice. It's about shipping lanes. It's about energy routes. It's about the Arctic melting and opening up new, more efficacious and expeditious routes. It's about rare earth access. It's about controlling the hemisphere. It's about controlling Arctic logistics. Because whoever controls logistics actually controls price stability. Empires, they never fall when markets crash. They fall when trade breaks down, when costs rise exponentially, and when savings stop protecting the future, and more importantly, when people and citizenry in the country stop believing in that future. That's not a conspiracy, that's just pure, unencumbered, unabashed history. And what's worse is that this eventually hits all of us directly, purposefully, personally, locally, and most importantly, harshly. Let's bring it home. This system hits all of us through mortgage payments resetting higher, rents compounding faster than salaries, credit card balances becoming permanent, student loans turning into lifetime obligations, car loan delinquencies stretching longer and costing more, credit spreads widening out. Unemployment doesn't need to explode per se. It just needs to stop improving, and the delta needs to get worse. That's enough. That marginal change is enough to trap households, to change discretionary spending behaviors, to alter how we look about our future, to alter our spending habits, and to decide whether or not we're going to take that vacation or whether we're going to scale down, stay home, and we're going to change our spending patternations. And trapped householders and trapped households don't build retirements. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. There's an ungodly conflagration between the Fed, quantitative easing, and the pension problem. Central banks cannot allow bond markets to fail, pension funds to implode, governments to refinance at mark-to-market honest rates. So what do they do instead? It's the same old trick: fiscal stimulus, monetary methadone, easing practices. They always do the same thing. Quantitative easing has never really gone away. It just mutated and the acronyms changed. The backstop changed. The emergency facilities names changed. The liquidity lines and the swap lines changed names, or they were repackaged in a different way. And the balance sheet tricks just got more and more sophisticated and complex. This all does one thing: it supports asset prices. And if you're in the game, like a lot of us are watching this video now, hopefully, you understand that asset price rises are great when you're positioned correctly. It's not so great when the currency gets diluted, or when your portfolio doesn't rise because you're not invested properly, or when purchasing power falls because you're invested only in a fiat currency that's constantly diminishing. Because financial history repeats this over and over again, ad nauseum, ad infinitum. It's happened before and it will continue to happen into perpetuity. Rome debased their currency to fund their empire. Britain inflated to survive the war. The US inflated after World War II to erase debt and to fund the baby boomers we see today. No empire defaults cleanly. They inflate their obligations away. And the people holding savings, fixed income, long-term promises, they are always the recipients of the suckerage. That's not a word, but I've just invented it. They're always the ones who pay the bill and pick up the tab. Not the politicians, not the political class, not the landed gentry, not the aristocracy, not the people in charge of the monolithic asset bases. The question they don't want asked is this: if inflation reduces real debt, stabilizes governments, forces populations to accept lower living standards, then ask this follow-up question: is inflation always a mistake? Or is it sometimes policy by design? I believe the latter. You don't need secret meetings. You don't need a grand conspiracy. You just need the correct incentive mechanisms. This isn't about war in Cuba, Venezuela, invading Greenland, Sudan, Nigeria, Syria, Iran, Israel. This isn't about that. It's about prices. It's about liquidity. It's about capital. It always is. War is always about money and resources. It's about whether your retirement math still works in a world where inflation is not just welcomed but tolerated. Purchasing power is expendable. Your dreams die with alacrity. And stability matters more than savers ever will. The battlefield isn't overseas. It's your future. It's your standard of living. And that war is already well underway. That's all I have to say today. We have to protect ourselves. We have to redenominate our asset bases, our portfolios, our strategic thinking of the future into hard assets that cannot be debased, cannot be reprinted ad infinitum, and cannot be whittled away by the slow erosion of the capital system. My name is Justin Banton. This is the House of Trade. Ciao for now.